In the last lesson, we have already talked about how order matters while declaring the styles in style sheet. But what happens if there are two or more CSS rule sets targeting the same element but has different selectors? Like in this example over here, the H1 element can be selected using an element selector or a class selector. So what do you think the color of the heading will be, blue or pink? So let's find out by doing it ourselves. In the HTML file, let's give the H1 heading a class of heading, and then the CSS file, let's select the heading and then give a color of pink. So let's save the page, and when you refresh it, let's see what happens. Yeah, the color of the heading changed to pink. But why? Because of specificity. Well, a specificity is how the browser decides which rule set to apply when there is a conflict. Well, a more specific selector is given more priority, and it will be chosen. That rule set will be chosen. So a class selector is more specific than an element selector. So that's why a class selector is given more priority, and it's chosen, and that rule set will be applied in our browser. So next, let's see another example. Here, this H1 heading over here can be selected using an element selector, class selector, or an ID selector. So what do you think the color of the heading will be? Blue, purple, or orange? Let's find out. So in our HTML, let's give an ID of let's give first ID. Let's save it and then select it, hash, and give a color of orange. Let's save it and see what happens. When you refresh the page, you see the heading color changed to orange because an ID selector is more specific than a class selector and an element selector. So IDs will be selected over the other selectors and are given more priority, and that rule set will apply. Next, let's see another example. Here we have a bunch of anchor tags, all with a background color of pink, and down here with the background color of silver. Now let's add another rule set. So where is it? Oh, down here, yeah. All the all the anchor tags inside the section element is given a pink color, and all the anchor tags inside this main element are given a background color of silver. So let's write another rule set, selecting all the anchor tags of the page and give a background color of blue. Let's see what happens. Let's save it and refresh your page. Yeah, you can see nothing happens. Everything is same as it is. These remained pink, and down here it's silver. Nothing happened. Why? Because when two elements are combined together to select an element, then the selector becomes more specific than an element selector. In here, the section and anchor, these two element selectors are combined together to write one selector, and then it becomes more specific than a single element selector. So the more specific a selector, the more priority is given to it, and that rule set will be chosen. So always remember, more specific selector always wins.